What is up, guys? Welcome to the Pirates Den podcast. We are back for a very special episode. This is the Halloween Spectacular.
Halloweener spectacular.
Yeah. Today in the podcast, we have Casey back with us.
Hello.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Sorry. Don't mind me. Loud noises.
Was I a little loud
Yeah.
there?
No, it was Trevor moving his microphone. You heard his springs in his arm.
Hey, eventually I'll get something better. Fuck are you?
But yeah, so we have Casey here today again. We all three of us were fairly excited for this this podcast. We're going to be telling scary stories or spooky stories or I don't know, Halloween themed stories.
Halloween episode.
Halloween episode stories. So I'm going to go ahead and give the floor here to Trevor. This will be our only episode where we're going to have background music in it because I'm going to find a royalty-free kind of scary music thing, and it will be quietly playing in the background. Try and give some ambience to you guys. So, Trevor, without further ado, take the floor.
All right. I've got a story called Eyeless Jack. And it goes, "Hello, my name is Mitch. I'm here to tell you guys about an experience I had. I don't know if it was paranormal or whatever stupid words people use to describe supernatural phenomena. But after that thing visited me, I believe in that paranormal trash now. A week after I moved in with my brother Edwin, after my house was foreclosed, I finished unpacking. Edwin liked the idea of moving in since we had not seen each other for 10 years. I was so excited. I soon fell asleep after I moved in. After that first week, I heard rustling noises coming from outside at about 1 a.m. I thought it was a raccoon, so I had ignored it and tried to fall asleep. The next morning, I told Edwin about it, and he agreed. The next night, however, I thought I had heard my window opening and a loud thump, as if something entered my room. I darted up and looked around my room, but I saw nothing. The next morning, Edwin dropped his cup of coffee when he saw me. He held up a nearby mirror, and I saw myself. I had a large gash in my left cheek. After I rushed to the hospital, my doctor told me that I must have been sleepwalking, but then he showed me something that made my blood turn cold. He lifted up my shirt and revealed a sewn incision where my kidneys were. I stared into his eyes. Mine widened. "You somehow lost your left kidney last night," my doctor told me. "We didn't know how, though. Sorry, Mitch." The next night was my breaking point. Around midnight, I woke up and to see a truly horrifying sight. It was cheese and crackers. I was staring face to face with a creature with a black hoodie, dark blue mask, with no nose or mouth staring down at me. The thing that scared me the most was that it had no eyes, just empty, black sockets. The creature also had some black substance dripping from its sockets. I grabbed a camera from my nearby mantle and took a picture. Immediately after taking the shot, the creature lunged at me and tried to claw open my chest to get to my lungs. I stopped it by kicking it in the face. As I ran out of my room, I grabbed my wallet. I would need the money. I ran out of my brother's house into the night. I eventually ended up in the woods near Edwin's house and tripped on a rock. I fell unconscious and woke up in the hospital. My doctor, the same one who treated me before, entered the room. He says, "I have good news and bad news, Mitch," my doctor started. "The good news is that you had minor injuries and your parents are going to pick you up." I sighed with relief. "The bad news is that your brother has been killed by some thing." "Sorry." My parents took me back to Edwin's house to collect my remaining belongings, which I did. Upon entering my room, I was scared, but remained calm. I grabbed my camera and then stopped dead in my tracks. In the hallway leading to my room, I saw Edwin's body and something lying next to it. I retrieved it up and entered my parents' card, not mentioning Edwin's corpse. I looked at the thing I had picked up and nearly vomited it. I was holding my stolen half kidney with some black substance in it. And I believe that is it. So, moral of the story, he killed his brother, I guess?
Oh, jeez.
I mean, speaking of missing
was good.
kidneys, I have something that is, kind of like that, but different. But we'll save that for
Did
later.
you want to save that one for later?
Yeah, let's save it for later. It's you guys' podcast.
Okay.
You go ahead and go first. I'm a guest here.
All right, I'm gonna tell two. Trevor, did you want to tell another one, or
I was just thinking of like a story apiece, like splitting them up,
okay?
because it's a lot
I'll-
of reading.
I'll do two stories just because mine are short. Like the two stories I'll read will be just about as long as the one you just read.
Okay.
So this one is called The Writing on the Wall, and it is by Erldingen. I can't say this guy's name. I will put it in the description on the podcast. I'm going to give credit where credit is due for these stories. So this story is called The Writing on the Wall. A young boy lay asleep in his bed when he heard footsteps outside his room. He peeked out of his eyes to see what was happening when his door swung open to reveal a murderer carrying the corpses of his parents. After silently propping them up on the chair, he wrote something on the wall in the blood of the dead bodies. He then hid under the child's bed. The child got scared beyond belief. He couldn't read the writing on the wall, and he knew the man was under his bed, but like any child, he pretended to be asleep, as if he hadn't woken up at all. He lay still, he lay as still as the bodies, quietly hearing the breaths from under his bed. An hour passed, and his eyes got adjusted to the darkness. He tried to make out the words, but struggled. He gasped when he finally read out the sentence. "I know you're awake." He read as he felt something shift from underneath his bed. So that, again, was The Writing on the Wall. Second story I have is called Blurry. And this is a user submission on this website that I'm on. It's Blurry by That One Cricket. I got my first pair of glasses last week. My parents didn't think I needed them at first, but the doctor said that there was something wrong with more than just my eyes, and that was apparently pretty common. And that I needed some specially prescribed glasses. For my own good, the doctor had said. He said that many people were never given the chance to see the way I could, so I was lucky to get them. I thought he meant cars and faraway words would become less blurry, but over the span of a couple days, many more things became more clear. I started seeing nightmare creatures all around. I'd never seen them before, like in the corners of my room and in darkened parking lots. I took off my glasses for the first time today, and let me just say it was amazing how quickly these demons and creatures turn into trees and shadows again. I know I'm not seeing the truth, but I'm a simple person. I took off my glasses for the remainder of my life because I'd rather see these blurry images just the way everyone else sees them.
I was going to say, that sounds like a horror story for somebody who suffers from astigmatism.
Or,
Yeah, it does.
I mean, so from what I'm getting, he had the glasses. I don't know. I'm not having that making sense.
Maybe the glasses, from what I get, the glasses were like a paranormal lens. So instead of seeing trees and shadows, he was seeing demons and creatures, and so he took his glasses off so
He could see the world
just like everybody else.
as it was. Interesting. Very.
But those are my two
interesting.
stories. Both of these are the two stories I read were created by people. They're not published works by any means, but I will credit the writers for these stories in the
That's
description
how-
below if you want to give them a read.
That's how most creepypasta stuff comes up, though. Like, it'll start on places like Reddit, and like that's
Yeah.
how things like Slender Man or Jeff the Killer or like the Skinwalker and all that shit started,
Yep.
as far as I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Casey, you have the floor here.
Okay, I was going to tell something a little different. What should I do? Should I tell the legend of Uncle Bob the Ball Snatcher, or should I go straight to what I was originally going to do?
We can end with Uncle Bob the Ball Snatcher.
Okay, I guess.
Ending with Uncle Bob. All right.
Stay tuned for that one. All right, so this is one that I did find on the Creepypasta wiki, and I found this around Halloween last year, and I remember reading it in my bed, and I got kind of creeped out because you guys know me, like I'm huge into horror games. We play horror games together a lot.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And I'm sure you've heard me say on multiple occasions that I would never play with a Ouija board ever, right?
Yes.
Yep. Nope. Fuck that. Nope.
I thought about it today, and if I had the choice to either do this or play with a Ouija board, I would probably play with a Ouija board.
Okay.
Ooh.
So,
That's
that being
gonna be
said, have you ever heard of something called the Three Kings Ritual before? Some people call it a game. Some people call it a straight up ritual. This came up as a story that somebody did on Reddit back in like 2012, and for whatever reason I just stumbled across it last year, and I just remembered it today.
I have never heard of that.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be
neither have
totally
I.
new to me.
So I'm just gonna kind of like brush over it. Like there's some ingredients that you need, there's some stuff that you need to do it, and then there's certain times when you have to do things.
Okay.
And it says that if you do it correctly, then you could get in touch with what is called the shadow side, which I'm assuming is talking to demons or evil spirits, I would imagine.
Right.
It says don't do it if you've had any drugs or alcohol the night of the event, or even within like the last couple days, or if you're not feeling well, spiritually stable, or even if you're doing it just to escape or just for fun. It says you're going to have a bad time. Don't do it. So here's what you need to do it. You need a large and a quiet empty room, preferably without windows. If they exist, then you need to be able to cover them up so you can ensure that you're in total darkness. It says basements usually work well if they're roomy enough. Next thing you're going to need is a pack of candles. You'll only use one of them if all goes well, and a lighter. You need a bucket of water, and you need a mug. You need an electric fan. You need 2 large mirrors, like the ones you'd have in your bedroom. You need 3 chairs, an alarm clock, an active cell phone that is fully charged, and somebody that you really trust who is willing to go through this with you. Last thing that you need is an item that is of great value to you, like something from your childhood or whatever. Maybe it's a teddy bear or something. So for the setup, and this is my question I'm going to ask at the end. Would you rather do this or mess with a Ouija board? So it says start the setup around 11 p.m. You'll place 1 chair in the center of the room facing north. This is important. Place the other 2 chairs exactly to the left and exactly to the right, facing you. You are sitting at the throne, is what it's called. The distance between your throne and that of your queen and fool, the other 2 chairs, should be about the length of your arm from each side, more or less. Place the 2 large mirrors on the queen and fool chairs to the left and right of you, facing you and each other at the same time. If you do it right, if you stare straight ahead of yourself, you should be, just staring into dark or staring into nothing. However, you should be able to see your reflection in your peripherals without moving your head or moving your eyes. If it's set up correctly. Next thing you want to do is you want to place a bucket of water in front of you and the mug in front of you, just barely out of reach. You want to place the fan behind you and turn it on. Don't set it to maximum power. Medium or low is usually enough. Leave it on. That's important. Leave it on. Next thing you'll do is turn off the lights and leave the door open. Don't shut the door. Leave the door open and go to your bedroom. Set everything else, the candles, your lighter, your alarm clock, your cell phone, whatever. Leave it charging. That's important. Set your clock for 3:30 in the morning. Turn off your lights and hold your power object while you get some rest.
Your valuable object, right?
Yeah, your valuable object. So
Okay.
it says, wake up exactly at 3:30 a.m. with your alarm clock. Turn it off, but don't turn on the light, because you're going to have exactly 3 minutes to light your candle, grab your cell phone, make your way to the dark room and sit on your throne. You should be seated by 3:33 a.m. Don't forget your power object, and you need to check for potential red flags. If your cell phone didn't charge for whatever reason, if the alarm doesn't go off exactly at 3:30, abort. If you find the door to the dark room that you chose closed, remember you left it open, abort. If the fan is turned off, abort. And it says if any of these things go wrong, it says you have time, but grab your jacket, leave your house. You can come back after 6 a.m. But it says get out of there quick. For whatever reason, X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
So if all is going as planned, go ahead and proceed to your throne, they call it. And it emphasizes this, which is going to be really hard. It says, do not look directly at either of the two mirrors beside you, and do not let the candle go out. The fan is a fail-safe. So if you were to move or slouch over, the fan would blow out your candle and essentially
Okay.
Let's see, where was I? It says, look straight ahead in the darkness, not at the candle, not at the mirrors, just straight ahead. And it also mentions that, well, during setup, we didn't specify which chair was the queen and which one was the fool. That's because it's your job to find out. And from their point of view, you could either be their queen or their fool too. Hence the name The Three Kings. There are some horror stories about this and people trying this on YouTube. Some are good, some are not. They could be all fake. But essentially, you have an hour. You have until, 4:34 in the morning to ask whoever it is that shows up any question that you want. It says, prepare to have a question answered with a question. Prepare to get tempted to do something, but you are to sit right there and not look at anything.
Until 4 a.m.
Until 4:34. Until it's all over. It does say that, well, yeah, it's okay to tremble a little bit, but try not to, because that doesn't affect the ritual. I already explained what the candle was for. So here's your backup in case something goes wrong here. Now, whatever happens there, like while you're sitting there for that hour, we can leave that to the imagination. There's a lot of other stories like on Reddit and on YouTube about it. So, let's see, not to stutter here. Your candle is backup number 1. The fan will blow out your candle if you were to fall over or something like that. Your loved one is backup number 2. So you're supposed to tell them at 4:34 to yell your name and see if you respond. If you don't respond, then they're supposed to come into the room, not touch you, take the bucket of, or no, before that. If they call your name and you don't answer, they call you. And if you don't answer, then they can come in the room, not touch you, and pouring the water over you will essentially
Pull
bring
you out of it.
Will pull you out of it.
That's... yeah, I don't know if I'd want to do that.
They said whoever shows up, they're supposed to have like infinite knowledge. But you can ask them any question you want. It just said, be prepared to have your question answered with a question. Be prepared to get answers that you don't necessarily want. But once you sit down in there, you can't leave for that entire hour.
Damn.
Or they don't know what happens to you. And that's why you have those fail-safes, so your friend can bring you out of it.
Pull you out, yeah.
That is the Three Kings ritual.
Huh. Interesting.
So, that being said, question, would you rather do that or mess with a Ouija board?
I would do a Ouija board before I did that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too.
To be honest, a Ouija board's easier because there's not as much setup, but at the same time, like, because from what I've understood, is like when you start messing with Ouija boards, like that soul is gonna start following you. Like if there's something that came, it's gonna start following you, And I feel like with the other one, maybe that might not happen. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I guess there's quite a few creepypastas about people who are actually trying to perform that, and that's why some people call it a ritual, because of like everything that you're setting up.
Yeah, that's a big setup, especially like you have to start it at 11, get it all set up, go to bed, wake up at 3:30 on the dot. Like that. I mean, if you think about it, you're going to be sleep deprived. So you're going to be sitting there in a chair with a lit candle. Your brain's going to be sitting there like halfway asleep and shit. Like,
and you got to stare straight ahead of yourself, so you'll probably start to get tunnel vision in the dark. It's like, don't you think your peripheral vision is going to fuck with you at least a little bit?
Oh yeah. Your own mind would start fucking with you.
Or
like,
on the flip side, we can just go to Barnes & Noble, because you can buy a Ouija board ages 8 and up. Welcome to America. 21 to buy alcohol, 8 to summon demons.
That's the thing is Hasbro, the original Ouija board, that the Oracle that knows all, that was mass produced originally by Hasbro. I have a hard time imagining that is an actual link to demonic things. Like, it could be, yes, I understand it could be, but I would have more that and something like that is so easily manipulated by other people. This other thing that you just explained, if you're alone in the house and things like that happen, you have no one to turn to but yourself.
You don't have to be alone. You can have a loved one. They just can't be in the room with you while it's going on.
No, that's part of the setup. The part of the setup requires you to have somebody outside the room, just in case shit hits the fan, like they can bring you back. That's why all of those fail safes are in place, so like you end up being okay. Because I mean,
could you imagine you're like it's going on and you're just sitting there in the chair tweaking out, going like,
but you're you're alone in that room, right? There's no other way anybody could really mess with anything in there while you're in that room.
Yeah, it's just you in there.
You are talking to something, and I'm not much of a religious person, but the devil knows what you want to hear, and he will tell you lies. If the devil is real, that's exactly what he would do. He would tell you exactly what you want to hear.
True. Well, so Lucifer will always try and grant you what you want,
right?
But with a price.
I'm not like spiritual by any means, but if that stuff does exist, then where else do you have to turn to but the Bible to say, hey, this is, yeah. So I would mess with the Ouija board, something that was mass produced as a children's game, before I did something that I'd be in a loner room communing with the spirit. Yeah.
Anyways, I thought you guys would find that interesting, and I started thinking about it, and I'm like, if I was actually about to do that, I would trip myself out. Even if I had somebody with me, I would be tripped out to do that.
Yeah, that's a lot of setup. Like, I mean, just doing the setup alone is gonna sit there and mess with your mind, because you're gonna go to sleep and then wake up. You're like, holy shit, am I actually gonna do this?
If you even sleep.
Yeah, and then you have to sit there for a whole hour, not do anything, just stare at the wall. Like,
yeah.
Like, there was like Tori and I were listening to somebody on YouTube who said that they tried the ritual, and I get it, like creepypastas, they're like stuff on Reddit, they're user submitted, they could very well be easily made up and
manipulated and everything.
Let's be honest, most of them probably are, but this dude was saying that he had, I can't remember which one was on his left or on his right, but apparently there was someone talking out of the mirror on the left side and was trying to get him to look into the mirror, and he refused the entire time.
Oh, damn.
Like, the entire time, trying to get him to look in the left mirror, trying to get him to look in the left mirror, and then eventually the mirror on the right side was like, yeah, maybe you're kind of an idiot, blah, blah, blah. So he was the fool to them. And right as he was about to cave in or something like that, The person that he had outside the room poured water on his head, and he woke up on the ground.
Jeez.
Huh. Yeah, no, I'd mess with the Ouija board. Definitely. Because, like I said, you can go out and buy a Ouija board ages 6 to 10, or 6 to 8 or whatever.
I mean, with evil stuff like that, it can only really bother you if you invite it in.
Right. I feel like doing that ritual, you were inviting it in, playing with the Ouija board, if you go in
a Ouija board
knowing
is the
you're
same
playing a
thing,
game.
though.
No, if you go in knowing you're playing a game and not trying to, so one of the rituals, you were trying to commune with the spirit. The other one with the Ouija board, you are, you could either take it as I'm playing a game to fuck with my friends, or you can take it as communing with spirits. And I would play it as a joke and a game.
That's like the whole point of a Ouija board, is to talk to somebody who's dead, though.
Yeah, no, I would. Nope. Fuck Ouija boards.
Can I just play video games like Phasmophobia instead?
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm totally okay with playing Phasmophobia, but I will never, ever fuck with a Ouija board in real life.
Well, here's what's going to happen. Zach's going to get really excited about Halloween, and he's going to go to Barnes & Noble, and he's like, here's this Hasbro motherfucker, and he's just going to pick it up and buy it, and he's going to leave it out for, like, the crew Halloween party or something like that, and then we're going to be playing Phasmophobia, and he's going to go for the spirit box, as he always does, and he's going to say, give me a sign, and then that motherfucker's going to start moving. And then Zach's done.
Zach's like, okay, I'm done.
Tori's gonna find the Ouija board, and she's gonna start asking it questions, and my Ouija board's gonna start moving, and I'll be like, okay, we're done with this now.
And then you'll go to burn it, and it just keeps popping back up.
You're like, This is exactly what I didn't want to happen.
So I'm gonna take a little detour here. I'm gonna tell. Actually, no, Trevor, you're next. Or do you mind if I step in and tell this really short little story here?
You can tell a short story. You're good.
Okay, I don't know how true this is, but it's something that my mom told me when I was young, and it's always scared me of Ouija boards. My grandma, when my mom was 8 or 9 years old, my grandma got together with her friends and played the Ouija board. I don't know. My mom doesn't know if they were actually trying to communicate with anybody or just seeing if it would work. They had no one specific in mind, but they played with it, and they had some weird things happen. Some like dishes fall off the counter that were way like so far on the counter that they would take something to push them off for them to fall off. And so they stopped playing with it, and my grandma got so freaked out she threw the Ouija board away. Well, after trash came the next day, and it was 2 days later, the Ouija board was sitting, 2 days after the trash came, the Ouija board was sitting on top of the trash can, the dumpster can. Perfectly fine. The little triangle sitting on it and everything on the goodbye thing that says, goodbye. It was sitting on goodbye. My grandma got freaked out. She ended up burning it and putting the ashes in the garbage can. Well, a few days later, it could have been a different Ouija board. Someone could have been playing a practical joke on her, but it was sitting on the counter in the kitchen where the dishes had been pushed off the counter.
One of your siblings is like, hey, these motherfuckers are like $8 at Barnes & Noble. Let's mess with grandma.
Right. And so I don't know if and my mom did have siblings that were jokesters, right? She had a younger sister that was a jokester, and 3 older brothers that liked playing jokes. So it could have easily been a joke. But ever since then, my mom has been terrified, and she won't watch movies that have anything to do with Ouija boards. Like the mention of Ouija boards, she leaves the room. So I don't know. It's always scared me off of them.
Wouldn't that be messed up if, like, all this time, like, how many years has it been, they actually did do it as a practical joke and they never came clean to her, and so she's still freaked out about it? They never came clean because they were scared they were going to get in trouble.
Get their ass beat with
that, and then to top that joke off, one of the worst things to do would be Right now, my grandma's in an old folks home right now, and she sleeps a lot. Well, and it's only one visitor is allowed at a time because of COVID restrictions. She wakes up and there's a Ouija board sitting on her bedside table.
That wouldn't even be a
Fuck.
joke at that point. That would just be cruel.
Yeah, it would. And my grandma, she's got dementia too, so yeah, that would be bad.
Yeah, no, that would be like grounds for an ass kicking.
Yeah. And my grandma would do it. She would get out of her bed all sickly and everything and whip her kids' asses. All right, Trevor.
Ugh.
You have the floor. Tell us something scary.
1 minute. I'm in the middle of doing something. Almost done.
Do you want me to go ahead and just tell one?
No, I got it. Okay.
Okay.
So this one's kind of a little bit longer than the one I had before. So this one is called 9 Rules for the Night Shift on Halloween Night at the
on.
Cemetery.
Cemetery.
This
Yeah,
is
I
a
can't-
long one. That's
Have
a
you s-
long one.
It says it's only 9 minutes.
Okay, go ahead, tell him.
Okay. So it starts out. You sure you have all the rules memorized? My boss said as he gathered his belongings to go home. Yeah, sure thing. I've got them all up here, I said as I pointed to my head. He gave me a nod and headed out the door of the small office to go home. My boss was a little off, to say the least. This was my first month as a security guard at the Centenary, whatever, fuck it, the graveyard. I'm just gonna say graveyard.
That works.
Right around the corner from my residence, and I had just gotten out of college about 3 months ago. The last month of shifts have been boring, sitting around, checking cameras, doing rounds through the graveyard, making sure nothing is out of order. Exciting, right? I needed a source of income, and it was the best paying job I can find. No real experience needed, the flyer said. My take is that they were desperate to find someone fast, so I took advantage of that. I was hired that day that I had found the flyer. Over the phone, I had never even found out the guy's name. Once I came in on my first day, my boss gave me no training, no to-do and don'ts, just verbal list of 9 rules I had to follow and memorize before Halloween night. These rules are to be followed only on Halloween night, he said. You must follow these rules to the exact way that they are told to you. If you mess up even a small part, well, you won't mess up. Because I trust that you will follow them word for word. I looked at him, confused, because this sounded almost like a threat. Nevertheless, I put out my phone and started an audio recording so he could record the list. Once he finished telling me the rules, I was in absolute disbelief. This guy's insane. No wonder nobody wants to work here. This guy is actually insane. I thought to myself, I know every place has certain rules to follow, but to designate a set of rules is insane. And for Halloween night only, I guess you won't know how I felt until I tell you the rules that they gave me, word for word, exactly how he told me, straight from the recording. Rule number 1. On Halloween night, please arrive at 8:30 p.m. No earlier, no later. Do not walk in these doors until it reaches 8:30. For the love of God, please. Rule number 2. Stay inside the office until 9:15. Do not leave. Keep yourself occupied. Do not check the security cameras during this time. Make sure you turn them off before you get there, so there is no temptation to peek at them. This might be one of the most important rules. If the monitors turn on by itself, do not look either. If for some reason you look and you see it has revealed to you a section of the graveyard, you must turn off the lights in the office and hide. If it reveals to you the A or B section, You look at it, your only option is to run. Good luck with this. To make this easier, just cover the monitor with a jacket or blanket because you will not want to see what happens out there this time on Halloween night. Rule number 3. After 9:15 strikes, you will have 30 seconds to get out of the office. Leave the door unlocked. It is possible you will pass an unnatural tall figure with no facial features. This is not a Halloween costume, and you must tell him good evening and look him right where his eyes would be. If he doesn't respond, continue on your way to patrol the graveyard. If he says anything at all, you must stand completely still. Do not move a muscle. He might walk around you, but if you keep still until he does, he will walk away with no problem. Go to the office and he will slam the door behind... he will go to the office and slam the door behind him. Rule number 4. You will make your way to Section A. Once you inspect Section A, you will realize the gravestone titled James R. Hackney to be dug up completely. This is not out of the ordinary. Do not, and I mean do not, pay any attention to what is inside the 6-foot hole in the ground. You will see the rest of your shift if you look down in that hole. Just keep walking to Section B and do not look back. Rule number 5. As you cross the bridge from Section A to B, you will notice about a dozen shadow-like figures standing around in a circle around the big oak tree to the left of the bridge. Please listen closely to what I am about to say. You must find the figure wearing the black top hat. You will walk up behind him and ask, "Am I clear?" If you hear a voice from inside your head say, "Continue," then you can carry on to Section B. If you do not hear anything, you must wait. You can look over to the section at this time, but I recommend keeping your eyes down. Trust me, there will be no physical harm to you if you look, but I can't promise you will be emotionally intact after looking. Rule number 6. Once you get the go-ahead, continue to Section B. You may walk around, but do what you normally do every night there. The only catch is you must stay in this section until 10 o'clock. It must be 9:30 to 9:45 by now, so you won't have to stay long. After the time crosses 10, continue on. Rule number 7. After walking out of Section B, you will notice a strange temperature change, the lighting change. The temperature will have jumped to about 2 a.m. after crossing. Do not panic, and please do not answer your phone. Your phone will be ringing consistently. As soon as it starts ringing, you will stand still and not move until it stops. It could be a call from your mother, father, sibling, girlfriend, boyfriend, anyone you can think of. You must not answer these calls. It is not actually them calling. It is in fact the man that you saw earlier, the one with no facial features. He is trying to lure you back to the office. You must stay away from that office until I tell you to go back. Your phone will stop ringing after about half an hour, which leaves you at around 2:30 a.m. You can continue at this point. Rule number 8. You will notice another time jump. This one to 2 more hours from 2:30 to 4:30. If the time still says 2:30 after the call stops, you are in trouble. Unfortunately, there is nothing you can do here. You messed up a step at some point if you end up here. You can finally finish your inspection of Section C. You must be prepared for a woman covered in blood to run up to you begging for help. She will be asking you where her baby is and if you can come to help her fast. Do not be startled. No matter how loud the yelling is. Tell her you will meet her outside the cemetery in 10 minutes. For her to wait there. She will run off in the opposite direction, and that's how you know you succeeded. There will be a lot of towels and rags all over the ground covered in blood of Section C. This is the only maintenance you will have to do. Just pick them up and dispose of them in the waste bin closest to you. Rule number 9. After completing the final task, you must run back to your office. Do not look anywhere but ahead of you. You will see figures everywhere. You will hear your name being called from voices that you think you recognize. Just keep running. Once you reach the office, you will see the faceless man leaving the office building. It should be about 5 a.m. at this point. He will stop you and say either good work and nod at you, and will slowly walk into the office and close the door for the remainder of the shift, or you can check the cameras. Sit down and go to your shift. Go on with your shift until I come inside to start my shift. Or if he says come with me, you will run and lock yourself in the office. Do not fall for his calm, monotone voice. Monotone. He is anything but calm if you mess up. Do not let him in, and wait for him to stop banging on the door. Once this stops, cover your eyes for the last hour of your shift. Don't look around until you hear 3 knocks on the door. This will be me to relieve you of your shift. You won't be called in for a few weeks to come to terms of what you have seen, and you will be paid handsomely for the amount of money of your duties. Now that you've listened to the rules, I hope you can understand my initial suspicion and why I am so baffled. I thought this was a joke until I finished my shift. After I arrived at 8:30, my boss left and decided I was going to just follow the rules given to me, to humble him and be a good sport of the prank. I didn't check the cameras. I headed out the door. After going outside, the brisk fall air hit me. I saw a tall man walking up to me. I looked at him. He was actually faceless. It looked so real and kind of gave me the creeps. I almost forgot to tell him good evening. He looked at me, well, I think he did, and continued to go on through the door. I shivered a little as I headed straight to Section A. I arrived at the entrance and searched for James R. Hinckley's grave, and a grave I had always saw, as it was the biggest one. To my disbelief, it was actually being dug up. I felt sick to my stomach that they would go this far to scare me, so I hurried past the grave as a wave of uneasy came over me. This can't be real. I reassured myself as I headed across the bridge to Section B. I scanned the oak tree, and I finally found it. I noticed the figures my boss had warned me about. I instantly spotted the one with the top hat and steadily scurried over to him and asked, "Am I clear?" No answer as I stood there, waiting for an answer that never came back. I decided to look away from the man and peek over to Section B because surely the pranksters wanted me to look, since they had warned me against it. I froze and I had felt pins and needles in my hands as I saw. At least what looked to me, except I was taller and covered in blood. As the figure that presumably was me stared back, it let out a screech and started running towards me. I was startled and absolutely mortified by this and turned around to run. I looked back and it had reached its arms out. It completely vanished as soon as it... cheese and crackers. I do apologize. It completely vanished. As soon as it vanished, I heard a voice from within my head say, "Continue." At this point, I had a million thoughts running through my head as I had started to realize whatever was happening was somehow impossibly real, and I felt my mind switch from confused to defensive. I inspected the area until 10 p.m., consistently looking over my shoulders. I checked my phone and saw it was time to move to Section 3. I felt exactly what I was told, a temperature change, and saw the surroundings just get a little bit darker. It was noticeably colder. No way, I told myself as I had reached for my phone, which displayed 2 a.m. Before I could form another thought, my phone rang on cue and stopped me dead in the tracks. Dad, the phone displayed. I stared at the phone as I had looked at those 3 letters. I never knew my dad, and definitely never had him saved in my phone. I felt a tear form in my eye because this was a very sensitive topic for me. I let it ring as I got lost in a trance of thinking about how on earth any of this was even possible. The ringing finally stopped, and I let out a sigh of relief. I remember the next rule about the time and opened my phone again, 2:30. I kept moving on with some straight tears in my eyes, watching my phone turn from 2:30 to 4:30. This was a relief to me now that I knew this was somehow real. I realized that I have done all the steps right to this so far. As I started inspecting Section 3 with cold fingers and numb toes, I heard screaming. Naturally, this scared the hell out of me, and I jumped out of my shoes. I snapped my head around to a blood-covered woman screaming, "My baby! I can't find my baby!" I told her after a bit of hesitation, I told her to meet me at the entrance of the graveyard in 10 minutes. She nodded, ran off, and I noticed a ton of blood-covered rags all over the ground. Shaken by her screams, I slowly picked up the rags and threw them out. I looked around and ran back to the office. The whole run, I didn't see anyone, didn't hear anything, which was weird because my boss said otherwise. I'd count my blessings here, though, and find myself in front of the office finally. The man was leaving. This time I looked at him in complete terror as he turned my way and said, "Come with me." I wasted no time running past him into the office and slamming the door behind me. "What did I mess up?" I yelled over the loud of banging on the door as I pulled my jacket over my head. I shivered in fear for the entire hour until I heard 3 knocks on the door. I shot up, threw the door open to reveal my boss, and yelled, "What the hell did you just put me through?" I was mad, although relieved to see him, who looked a little more colorful and lifelike than he has in the past. He looked at me and smiled. "Go home, kid. Get some sleep." I yelled back, "No, I want answers. You can't just tell me to go after the night I just had." He looked at me and said, "You took care of the graveyard, kid, and I thank you for that." He held out his hand for a handshake. "The name James Randall Hinckley, and I have been dead for 200 years. Every Halloween I leave the graveyard and recharge so my physical body does not perish. You covered me one night, and I thank you for that." It didn't take me long to realize his name was the same on the gravestone that was dug up. I stared back at him, mouth wide open, speechless. I walked out of that door, packed up my house, and never came back to that town again. That'd be fucking...
That's not... I never go to a graveyard at night.
I've done it a couple of times, but oof.
I feel like we just got an entire movie narrated to us.
That was actually a pretty good one. I liked it.
No, that is a good story, but this is a lengthy one. That's what she said.
Yeah, it was.
It was pretty lengthy.
So, I got one here. I'm not going to read the entire thing because it says read time is 41 minutes, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, the one I did said,
but it does have.
Yeah,
that was 12.
Well, that's probably because of me reading.
Yeah, that's fine. This
fine,
one, I'm gonna go ahead and read this one. I'm not going to tell you the name of it until after it's over. you guys will probably be able to guess it. Like I said, it's a long one, but I'm just going to read this very first excerpt from it, and then go. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and start.
Okay.
If only you hadn't looked back. Though it was autumn, the day had seemed long, and the brief walk toward home short. As sunlight began to fade, you and your two friends left the playground behind and trudged reluctantly home, knowing that you would be forced to pick up the games and conversations the next day. But the next day never came. If only you hadn't looked back. But you had. Turning for just a moment, you had glanced toward the tree line, seen fingers of the branches clawing upward towards the sky beside them, the figure. At first, you thought you must be mistaken, that your eyes in the hazy blur of twilight were playing tricks on you. But no. When you looked again, he was still there. Taller than any man could be, thinner even than the willowy branches that extended ever upward from the trees. He loomed in the distance, like the shadow of some horrible, dark truth. You knew instantly that you had to look away, that if you didn't tear your eyes from the blank, featureless face, then soon the blank would wash over you.
Sorry.
Become you, and you would walk slowly but surely, as if pulled by some magnetic force toward him, though you feared him, though you were scared of the unnatural height, the aching, blank witness of his face, the arms that seemed to stretch toward you, and the slithering tentacles behind. You turned, screwing up your eyes, willing yourself not to look, not to see, not to give in, not to go to him. You screamed to the others, telling them the same, telling them not to look. But as you open your eyes, you realize they had already looked, and they were gone. Tomorrow would never come.
I'm sorry. Casey was making...
I'm sorry.
He's like doing the whole thing, like ripping the eyes out and shit. It was making me laugh.
That's fine.
I'm just gonna start acting out these stories.
Oh, that was
So,
hilarious.
If it wasn't obvious, you guys know what that was about, right?
Slenderman?
Apparently,
Yeah, it was
it's
the
obvious.
It was the Slenderman.
Oh, it was
Okay.
Slenderman. Oh man.
Like I said, it was just like
yeah.
it was an excerpt. Like I said, this entire story is long. At the end of this excerpt, it says, "Probably the most famous creepypasta character of all time, and certainly the one that's crossed most frequently into mainstream media. The Slenderman, also known as Slenderman, is a character born of a variety of earlier influences, but which itself represents an evolution in the uses and development of folklore."
I was gonna say, I thought that Slenderman originally came from like a medieval folklore of a spirit that would kidnap kids.
You know, I thought so too, but this whole thing is all about,
I guess it's evolved, and now he wears a suit and a tie.
yeah, like Slenderman historical references, Brazilian cave paintings, Egyptian hieroglyphics, German woodcuts, Romanian mythology, and English mythology. Like, Slenderman has like a huge thing in it. He's got a long history.
Well, that's it. It's not Halloween yet. We have to do another episode, except I'm going to get extremely hammered and get in front of my webcam, and I'm going to reenact the entire thing as you tell the stories. Impromptu.
I'm down.
That would
I'm
be
down for another
amazing.
one. I don't know if we'll have time between now and then to do another episode for Halloween, but Casey, you have the floor.
All right.
Entertain
Oh,
us.
shoot. No, I'm put on the spot. Okay. Here's one. Especially if you have pets. Here's one. A woman comes home from work. She goes into her apartment. You know, the nightly thing. Just what you do. Your nightly routine before you go to bed. Whew, just put on the spot. Okay. Here we go. So she does that. She has a dog, right? So this actually is a creepypasta, but I'm just reciting it from memory.
Right.
So she lays in bed and does her thing. She doesn't like dogs on the bed for some reason. So the dog usually lays next to the bed. She goes to sleep. She wakes up because she thinks she hears something. Looks down and sees her puppy. Goes back over, goes to sleep. Wakes up again because she feels like she hears something else, right? Half asleep, puts her hand down on the side of the bed and starts to pet her dog. Dog starts to lick her fingers, give kisses, all that stuff. Everything's fine. She goes back to sleep and she starts hearing a faucet drip.
Ooh.
And how people who have when you can't stand the sound of something, what's that called? I know the word for it. Misophonia. I think it's misophonia. If you it's like nails on a chalkboard. You hear something and you can't stand it.
Yeah, it's misophonia.
That's right.
Yeah,
Okay.
misophonia.
So she starts to hear her faucet drip in her bathroom. Well, assuming by how the story is told, I guess it was close. So she started to hear the faucet drip. She started to hear the faucet drip. She started to hear the faucet drip. So she finally gets frustrated. She gets up and she goes into the bathroom, and the whole bathroom is painted with blood, and her dog has been cut in half and bloodlet into a bucket.
Oh.
And it's written on the walls, and it said, "Humans can lick too."
Oh.
Alrighty then. Holy shit.
A little
shit.
shorter, but
That's
I'd be burning the house down. Like,
guys, I'm gonna walk into my bathroom later, and it's gonna be on the wall. And I have no pets.
Humans
so.
can lick too.
I do have another really quick one, if I may.
Yeah, you're
Go
good.
for it.
And this is another one that was on Creepypasta. It's called Portraits. So there's a dude riding horseback out in the mountains. He is, riding horseback trying to get to his destination. It's becoming evening time. It is winter. And, it's evening time. It's going to be nighttime here real soon. So he's trying to find a place to settle down with him and his horse because he's going to freeze to death out there at night. So long story short, he comes out to, he finds a farm that doesn't really look like there's anybody there. He doesn't want to intrude, doesn't want to be rude, ties up his horse, takes his lantern, holds it up, goes up to the door of the cabin, no lights on, knocks, nothing, knocks again, nothing, yells, "Hey, I just need a place to stay." All right. It's getting cold enough and it's snowing so hard that it's becoming difficult to see outside. He establishes that the place has been abandoned, so he takes his horse in as well, because he doesn't want his horse to freeze to death. Looks around, looks all over the cabin. Nobody's there. It's completely abandoned. So he lights a fire, because there's a fireplace there, and miraculously there's wood. So, hey, spoiler alert, somebody's there. Rolls out his sleeping bag. Everything seems fine, eventually goes to sleep. Well, he wakes up in the middle of the night, sits up half asleep, and then starts to realize there's pictures all over the living room of this cabin. He gets up and takes his lantern, kind of delirious, and he starts looking at each one of these pictures, and they're all faces, but they're not just normal faces. They're grimacing faces. Something looks seriously wrong with them. He gets really unnerved, and he's like, "Nope, forget this. I'm going to lay back down." Sits by his lantern, goes back to sleep. He wakes up in the morning. His lantern has died out. His horse is alive, not frozen to death. There's still nobody around, nobody in the cabin. And once he comes to and sits up and starts to look around, that he wasn't seeing pictures in the room. There weren't any pictures anywhere in the room. There were lots of windows, though.
No. Nope.
I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah, nope.
There were only windows.
There was only windows.
Ugh.
Right, and since it is the episode it is, the only reason why I even heard about creepypasta.com is when I was in basic training, there was something called, I can't remember what the hell it was called, but they'll wake you up in the middle of the night, and they won't give you a gun with live rounds, obviously, like they'd give you an empty one. It was called entry control duty, or EC duty, and for 2 hours a night, 2 people had to guard it. And there was this one dude I met named Juwan Kenzie. I think he's in Alaska now. And we went back and forth, like, telling creepypasta stuff to each other. But he was the one who actually told me what creepypasta was. And so it was probably the most enjoyable EC duty I've ever had, because he had some really good stories. And that last one I just told, he told it way better than I could tell it. But that was one of them.
Damn.
I was like,
Awesome.
Like, he was really into horror.
I like it too. I like getting chills.
So, I think we have time for Trevor to tell another short one, me to tell another short one, and then Casey can end it off with
Oh man,
a creepypasta he had made.
How about, if I could propose, how about something that you've experienced personally?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think I'm going to do another creepypasta. I'm going to go on an experience that I had.
Because you're always going to tell that better than something that you're just, reading impromptu, unless you're...
Okay.
Yeah, I've already told you guys, but our audio on that one podcast got messed up, but I'm going to tell it again. So back when I was younger, I thoroughly enjoyed watching Ghost Adventures. And I watched every single episode, because it was interesting to me, like, to see what was going on and things like that. And obviously some of it may be staged, I don't know, but it was an interesting show. I enjoyed it. Well, my mom had always told me that I needed to stop watching it because something would end up coming through, like a spirit would end up coming through. And I'm like, oh no, I'll be fine, it's okay. And what had happened to me is one night I was sitting there watching Ghost Adventures. It was I can't remember the episode. It was really, really scary. And all of a sudden my TV went to white noise with the static on the TV and everything. And like, I had DirecTV. That's not something that happens with a TV provider. But my TV went to white noise and just would not stop no matter what button I pushed, until I unplugged it. And ever since that happened, I'm like, nope, I am never watching Ghost Adventures again, because that scared the absolute shit out of me.
I was gonna say The Ring wasn't that scary of a movie, but if that were to happen to me in real life, yeah, that's a little different.
Yeah, I was, I think, 15, 16 years old when it happened, and like, I've never really been scared of things, but like, literally in the middle of Ghost Adventures, and it was a very scary spot for it to go white noise, and like, they were messing with some really fucking, I think it might have been the episode with the plague doctors, where they had like the masks and everything, and like there was all the dead bodies because of the plague and all that, and they put them out on an island because there was nothing they could do, and they would die, and then put them out on an island. And it was in the middle of that episode, and my screen just turned to white noise, and I'm like, what in the fuck? Like, it, still to this day, I'm like, I can't, no. Scared the fuck out of me.
So I don't have any. I already told the one that didn't even relate to me, the one about the Ouija board. I haven't had any scary or things I couldn't explain happen to me. But if you guys don't mind, I'll read another story and then we'll give it to Casey to end it out.
Yeah.
I still
Alright.
have stuff I haven't shared. So.
Well, we'll let.
you.
Oh, if you want to go ahead, Casey. If you
I
want to
don't-
go ahead and share
I don't
something,
care.
Casey, then. Well, we'll let you share something, and then
You sure?
I'll tell my story, and then you'll end it off with a creepypasta of your own.
All right, I'll try to make it quick. So, this happened when I was 14 years old. I remember that to a T. I'm 31 now, about to be 32. All right, so the anatomy of my hometown really quick to understand how this went down. I had a really good friend who lived on one side of the train tracks, and then I lived on the other side of the train tracks. So usually, like, he'd come over, we'd game, we'd walk each other like halfway home, blah blah blah, whatever. I went to walk him halfway home one night. Parents said, "Yeah, it's time for bed." You know, I'm 14 years old, whatever. So I say, "See you later, man," and I go to walk home. Now, walking home, there was a park that I had to go across. Or I didn't have to go across it. It was on the corner of a street. Picture a park on the corner of a street with a street lamp on said corner with a huge freaking pine tree right there. I decided, well, and this isn't my only story of seeing something in this park at night. Instead of going all the way around the corner, taking that 90-degree angle, I decided to go through the park. So I went through the park, and of course things like this would only happen when you have nobody else around and it's just you. But as I was walking across the park, underneath the street lamp, I thought I saw a person walking, like literally just like walking up the sidewalk. And so I turned and looked, and it was there for a second, it was there for a second, it was there, and then it was gone. I got a good look at it. It wasn't like just seeing something out of the corner of your eye and it was not there anymore. I looked at it,
Yeah.
looked at it, it was gone, and it honestly just looked like a shadow standing up. And I have never ran to my house as a kid so fast in my life.
I would have done the same.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I do have another one. I actually have two more about that same park. Maybe I should have told them earlier, but for the sake of the length of the podcast, maybe I'll save them.
Okay. I'll tell this really short one. It's 5 minutes long, and then we'll end it off with Casey. So the start of this one says, this one's called "The Cat Scratching at My Door," and it's by Weatherford and Sky. They found him screaming in pain, covering his hollowed-out eyes. The police also found a knife beside him that he had taken from our kitchen. My brother and I were standing out in the cold when I saw the faint green glow of my cat's eyes in the bedroom window. That was the last time I ever saw my family cat. Alright. So it says, I never thought a childish prank would save me and my brother's life. It began in late September. My family cat had passed away from old age a few weeks prior. I missed her terribly and assumed that the strange things that began to happen were just echoes of my grief. When she was still alive, she used to scratch at my door until I let her into my room, and she used the crawl space as her own little home, sometimes hiding away for most of the day until pushing the door open in the middle of the night. I had gotten so used to it that I was no longer startled by the tapping of little paws upstairs and the sound of the little door creeping open. So used to it, in fact, that when the same things happened after her death, it took me a while to notice. When I did finally notice, the sound gave me a strange feeling of unease but familiarity. I told myself that it was just the creaking of an old house, but a part of me wanted to believe she was still here in some capacity. One night in October, I was awoken by a scratching at my door and a faint meow. It lasted only a few seconds, but I'd heard it clearly. I thought it was a dream.
Now,
It had to have been a dream.
Meow.
After all, she was gone, but then it kept happening every night. At 1:50 a.m., I would hear scratching at my door and the cries of a cat who was long gone. I told no one of it because even though it frightened me, I didn't want to lose what I had left of my dear cat. The scratching stayed the same night until October 21st, when it became harder to ignore. Everything was normal that night. My parents had gone for the night and my brother was sleeping downstairs. I watched YouTube until I fell asleep and the glow of my laptop was still on my face when I heard the scratching. I wasn't even scared. It felt like any other night until it didn't stop. The scratching only got more frantic and the crying grew in volume with each swipe of the claw. I'd never heard my cat act like that, even when she was alive. I quickly sat up on my bed, checked the time. 1:46 a.m. Why had time gone back? The scratching got even worse. It sounded like she could tear through the door at any moment. I got up from my bed and slowly cracked open the door. My heart was racing. I had no idea what I would see behind the door, but I had to open it. I opened the door, only a crack, and suddenly it pushed open. However, there was nothing behind the door. I felt a strange presence, like something had came into my room. I didn't know what else to do but go back to bed and try and fall asleep. The next few nights were just the same. The scratching was almost deafening until I opened the door and let no one inside. It was creepy but comforting. Every time I opened the door, it was like my cat came to visit me from beyond the grave. The last night I felt her presence was a night I will never forget. To this day, that it was the most horrifying night of my life. It was Halloween night. I had just come home from a party, so I could stay with my brother for a night as my parents were out of town. We watched and made fun of some god-awful Halloween movies from our childhood until midnight. I thought it would be funny to scare him with the scratching and meowing, so I told him to sleep in my room that night. I never thought this childish prank would save my brother's and I's life. I got into my bed and he had got in the sleeping bag beside me. He fell asleep almost immediately. Well, I could barely keep still from the anticipation of this prank. Suddenly my window flooded with light. I assumed it was my parents coming back from their trip early, but something felt off. The clock struck 1:50. Instead of scratching or meowing, the little door to the crawl space flung open. A dark figure rushed out and jumped right at me. I let out a scream, waking my brother beside me. The dark figure went through my chest and disappeared behind me. I was left hyperventilating and holding my hand to my chest. This wasn't a visit. This was a warning. I heard what sounded like someone trying to get inside the house without hesitation. I grabbed my brother and told him to get into the crawl space. He was groggy and disorientated, but did what I said. I followed behind him and moved the chair in front of the little door before closing it. I told him to be completely silent. We heard a big crash and then footsteps down the stairs. Someone had broken through the window. I heard the stranger open all the doors and push things over. I felt my face go white as I heard the stranger start coming up the stairs. I held my hand over my brother's mouth and began to pray in my head. The stranger was at the door. My heart was pounding. He flung open the door and entered the room. I could hear him flip my bed over, knock over my nightstand. I thought we were going to die. My brother was silently texting the police while all I could do was stare at the door, knowing it would open at any second. The stranger pushed over the chair in front of the crawl space. The only thing left between me and the intruder was a little crawl space door. My brother and I grabbed the handle and held it shut. Then I heard a hiss and a growl of a cat. It felt like it was right behind us. Finally, the intruder tried to open the door. We held it shut for as long as we could until the stranger flung it open with one great pull. Before I could get a good look at him, the dark figure leaped out from behind us and pounced on his face. It happened so quickly, you could only see flicks of blood flying around. He fell to the ground crying and holding his now mangled face. The dark figure ran into the shadows, and my brother and I ran out the door and down the stairs. We screamed for help out in the cold until the neighbors came outside to see what was wrong. The police arrived a short time after. It turns out the stranger was a drug-addicted ex-convict who was breaking into people's homes around the area looking for cash. I looked up at my bedroom window, saw the faint green glow of my cat's eyes in my bedroom window, and that was the last time I ever saw my family cat.
You know, I think the moral of that story is that a lot of the time maybe it's not actually the paranormal, whether you believe in that or not. It's humans. Like, humans are the monsters.
Not all spirits are out to get you.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we have time for one more short little thing, and the floor will go to Casey here. He has his very own creepypasta to share.
Oh my lord, here we go. So,
Here
like
we
I
fucking go.
like how we said, it's not necessarily paranormal things, but probably humans more often than not. For example, in that last story, when you yelled, "Get in the crawl space," I thought of John Wayne Gacy, and I was like, oh my god.
Oh my god.
I did. I'm like, get in the crawl space. I'm like, wait a second. Are these stories intertwined? I don't know.
Could be.
So, what this is, well, a couple things. First of all, it's very uncommon to be out in the forest looking for pages. How often do you find yourself doing that? You're out in the forest camping. Second of all,
All the time. Fire starter.
yeah. Well, I mean, you might be looking for kindling or something like that, but you're probably not going to be looking for pages. I don't know. Second of all, you're not very likely to find a turkey out in the forest if you do find yourself in that situation. So if you do find a turkey out in the forest who happens to go at you, I would encourage that you run away as fast as you possibly can. And this is the story of Uncle Bob the Ball Snatcher. Do you remember those urban legends that you heard? Like, well, I think one was referenced earlier about like someone going on a date. Always a guy. It's always a guy. Gets roofied. You ever seen the movie Hostel? Okay. They wake up in a bathtub full of ice and have their kidney missing. Well, picture that, but you have your testicles missing.
My nuts.
This isn't intended to be scary. So I was driving to Minneapolis, Minnesota from Minot, North Dakota, where I was stationed, for a 4th of July party, and to keep us awake, because we were driving all night, we decided to make the drive at like 9 p.m. Totally sober, we don't drink and drive, disclaimer.
Yeah, don't drink and drive.
We started telling each other creepypastas, like Slender Man came up, the whole kidney missing in a bathtub full of ice came up, all that, and we were tired, delirious. We made our own creepypasta, and we called it Uncle Bob the Ball Snatcher. I have no idea where the fuck turkeys came in here. It just sounded great. So here's what happens if you encounter Uncle Bob the Ball Snatcher. And please, somebody, whoever is listening, any game developers, you have my permission. Please use this. Just, maybe throw me a $20 bill, buy me a case of beer, something. I will be satisfied, and I will laugh my ass off. I guarantee it. So, you're out in the woods, but instead of Slender Man popping up, or trying to find pages, you're trying to find something in the woods. I don't care. Maybe you're going out trying to find kindling, and you hear a turkey go, just one turkey. You're like, oh, it's a turkey. What the fuck is a turkey doing out here, bro? Hey, bro, this motherfucker. Look at this mother. Look at him. Look at him. He's right there. He's right there, and he goes, like, well, yeah, let's keep looking for some kindling, bro. Let's look for some. Oh, the kindling is gone, man. Wait, I found a piece right here. Now there's 3 turkeys. Like, bro, there's like 3 turkeys. Wait, that one turkey don't look too happy, bro. Hey, bro. Yeah, I know we should have bought firewood, but alright, let's just keep looking. Let's try to find some kindling around here somewhere. You found like 5-6 pieces of kindling, and now there's like 10 of those motherfuckers, and they look at you like,
There's just a gaggle of turkeys.
a gaggle of them at this point. And now only about like half of them look happy. Maybe a little bit over half of them look unhappy, and they're looking right at you and your friend, and they want to gobble those balls. I tell you. So anyway, by the time that you're about to find enough kindling to actually go back to the campsite, you're getting overrun. This is the Normandy of turkeys, but it will never go down in history because no one will ever know.
And no one will remember.
So next thing you know, You're overcome by turkeys. Nobody knows what Bob the Ball Snatcher looks like. You're overcome by turkeys. He will come out of his hole. You will be dragged into his hole, and he will remove your testicles, and you'll wake up in a bathtub full of eyes with your nuts missing.
So, a moral of this story is if you're out camping and you hear pack up, leave, get out.
Get the
Yeah,
fuck
just
out of
go.
town. Get
Just
the hell
go.
out of Dodge.
Those aren't normal turkeys, man.
They're coming for your balls.
They're trying to gobble your balls and not in the way that you might like.
Yeah. All right,
Okay,
guys.
Anyways,
Heck 'em.
that was it.
So, I hope you enjoyed our Halloween spectacular, our Halloween
this is-
special.
And this is the only time where getting your balls gobbled is not the climax, because I felt like I could have done way better there.
Give
Yeah.
your balls a tug.
Not at gobbling
Give
balls.
your balls
I mean,
a tug.
at an ending story. No, I'm just gonna shut up. Anyways, that's Uncle Bob the Ball Snatcher.
So,
I love
hope you guys
it.
enjoyed this Halloween special episode here. We had some creepy stories, and
Yes.
topped it off with Uncle Bob the Ball Snatcher. So, guys, Halloween's coming up. This will be released before Halloween. Please, if you're going to help parties or anything, please, be safe, be responsible. There's those ragers you go to. If you partake in alcohol, please do not drink and drive.
Especially because there'll be kids out all
And if
times of the
any
hour.
one of-
Exactly.
And if any one of those shitlins is dressed up as a turkey, that's not funny.
Run.
That's not a turkey. All
No,
right,
They're
guys.
trying to trick you, man. They're trying to trick you. They're after your balls.
They are not treating you.
They're not treating you. They're coming for them nuts.
All right, guys. Enjoy your Halloween. Be safe out there. Don't let Uncle Bob and his turkeys get you.
Hugs, not drugs.
Thanks for having me on the show, Zach.
Yeah, of course, buddy. You're always
Always.
welcome.
And
All right,
Trevor,
guys.
too.
Be on the lookout for our next episode. It will be released November-ish, and we will get it. All right, guys. Without further ado, see you next episode. Love you. Bye.